Today's gospel is a story about Jesus. He's just left the River Jordan, and he said that grand yes to baptism, right? So he's filled with the Holy Spirit, and he's ready to go. And then, and this is the part that I think is terribly unfair, he's led by the Holy Spirit directly into, not going out to his ministry, public ministry right away, ready to go, but filled with the Holy Spirit, led into the wilderness for 40 days of temptation by the devil. This seems to me to be terribly unfair. I mean, right? So this grand yes now is met with this big gap, this big challenge to his beginning his ministry. And so here he is in the desert for 40 days and 40 nights. And here's the devil saying to him, "Oh, you think you're going to get started on this work of God? Prove yourself. Oh, and also, by the way, life in the world is about power, and the only way you can get this worldly power is through me." And then also he says to him, how do you know that this God of yours is someone you can trust? Well, so essentially, just at the start of this grand yes to baptism and being somebody that goes out to have the world know about God, Jesus is essentially taunted. He's tempted. His trust is challenged with this very human question. Just who do you think you are? Think for a moment. How often do you hear those words in your own head? Just who do you think you are? This happens all the time, doesn't it? I know it does for me. You know, even especially when I've decided to do something big. Our world is so filled with opinions and doubts and challenges, and we're asked to prove ourselves at every turn. We're asked to take sides, to hedge our bets. It can seem like the world is a vast wilderness of mistrust. So one of the many jobs that I do in my life is as a substitute teacher for middle school and high school kids. And if any job could be destined to make you doubt yourself, being a sub is probably it, right? As you might imagine, I go to a new school every day. I meet hundreds of new students. I'm filling in for a teacher that I don't even know. And it creates a kind of just who do you think you are wilderness that I have to experience every day. So when I first started, I decided that I needed to tell the kids right away about who I am, about my resume, about my experience, so that they'd get to know me as a person and so that I wasn't just the sub. Well, it makes sense, right? But so I developed this thing that I said, this introduction that I would share with the kids at the start of every class and tell them about my experience. But you know, it didn't seem to make much difference to that kind of mistrust, the tension that happens, the resistance that comes from students. And one day, as I was finishing my introduction to the students, this kid in the back of the class raised his hand and said, "Okay, it's my turn now, right?" Yes, you see, what was I leaving out? I had forgotten that my wilderness was also their wilderness. We were all living in a world of just who do you think you are? So today, I greet each class in a different way. I tell them very little about my experience, my background, my resume. And I take a risk. I tell my students about the fact that I have a commitment in the world to love people. Now, you can imagine how that might go over with middle school and high school students. I can see the eyes rolling. But I also tell them that because of that big commitment to love people in the world, that it's also my commitment that in this moment in time that we've got together, this one day, then we'll never maybe see each other again. But I have a commitment that they get what they need, and that I want them to hold me accountable to that commitment. I ask my students that if they see this look on my face, that they raise their hand and remind me of my commitment. So one day, and you know, it doesn't always go well, but one day there was a day where I just was being run around the room by this student who just couldn't manage to stop disrupting, to sit in his seat, to keep disrupting everybody else. And I was getting very frustrated, and all of a sudden, miraculously, it was that kid who raised his hand and said, "Mrs. H, you've got that look on your face. Remember your commitment." And in that moment, all of the distrust, all of my self-doubt, all of my need to be right, to be in charge, melted away. The class laughed, he got back on track. You see, what matters to my students is not who I am, but who I'm being with them. And when I ask them to help me remember that, we're in it together. In today's gospel, Jesus gives us his example. Resisting temptation, saying no to self-doubt and mistrust as he begins his big yes of ministry in the world. And each week, as we come here together as a community of Pax Christi, we get a chance to remember together. We remind each other that it's not who we are, but who we are being in the world that matters. So reminded that our God knows who we are already. We don't need to prove it. We're being reminded that our power comes from the only source of power, which is love. And the only thing that matters is that we're in this vast wilderness together, committed to being love in the world for each other. And that is who we are.